children, welcome back to history class. Now let us take a quick recap of things that we studied in last class. In last class we studied about importance of history, why we should study history and what is the importance of history. We studied about the different people who gain the information about the history and pass it on to us, the historians and the archaeologists, and their duties. We also studied about the various sources of history, literary sources as well as archaeological sources, from where we get all the information about the incidents, events and things that happened hundreds and thousands of years ago. Okay, now we also studied about the chronology of history. Chronology means sequence-wise arrangement of things that occurred in past. The past events have been arranged sequence-wise by the historians in this particular way. Events that happened before the birth of Jesus Christ as period of BC, period of CE or Common Era, and period of AD or Anno Domini. Right. Now let us continue further with the arrangement of the historical events in proper order. The historians and archaeologists have very systematically grouped the study of human history in proper groups or proper time periods. The study of human history has been divided in these periods. The first period being the period of prehistory, where we study about the early humans, the first humans that evolved from the apes and who did the very remarkable and notable inventions and discoveries of fire, agriculture, language, all these things. Right. Now, why is this particular period known as the period of prehistory? It is known as the period of prehistory because we do not have any written records of this particular period. Now the question arises, when we do not have any written records about this particular period, then how do we get to know about the things that the early human did? We get to know about the things that the early human did or the way they lived and all through all the archaeological sources. Like rock and cave paintings, the skeletons that have been found buried under the ground for long period of time, from the remains of tools and other equipments or seeds that they use. Right. Now why do we not have any written records about the prehistorical period? We do not have any records of this period because the early humans, they did not know how to speak, how to read or how to write. Now let us take a quick look in the life of early humans who lived in the Indian subcontinent. The early people who lived in our Indian subcontinent were wanderers. Wanderers means the people who keep on moving from one place to another place, generally in search of food, water and shelter. They also move around to protect themselves from natural disasters like floods, droughts, volcanoes, etc. or extreme climate. Like in summer, there is lack of vegetation and food, so they move from that place to another place where water is also easily available and other plants and vegetation are also easily available. Okay. Now, in your textbooks, on page number 2, is given a map of India. Let us take a quick look and study about it. I have drawn here a rough sketch of map of India for your experience. From the central part of our country flows a perennial mighty river, Narmada, which is the lifeline of our state and also our neighboring state, Madhya Pradesh. River Narmada, you all must have studied in lower classes, originates from Madhya Pradesh and flows towards Arabian Sea in the west, towards Gujarat. Okay. Now, on the banks of this river, the early humans settled and stayed for several hundreds and thousands of years. Right. Now, these people, those who settled over here, they were skilled gatherers. Because of river Narmada, this region was very much rich in plants, vegetations and forest. Skilled gatherers are the people who are very much skilled or efficient in gathering all the forest products, that is the fruits, roots, nuts and honey and other things that are found in the forest, which was useful for them to eat as their food. And because they were living in this region for a long period of time, they were very much familiar with all the vast wealth of plants growing in this surrounding forest. Right. Besides being skilled gatherers, they were also very efficient hunters. They hunt many a times. Due to lack of enough vegetations and plants, the people had to hunt and kill animals for their food. Right. Now, let us see how these skilled gatherers and hunters, they became farmers. By observing the growth of plants from the seeds that were scattered on the earth by them, how they germinated and how they grew into a fully grown plant or a tree. They observed it for many years, and from there they learned how a seed grows into a fully grown crop which they can eat or consume. 8,000 years ago, towards the northwest of our country, at the place called Suleiman Hills and Kirtar Hills, which are now a part of Pakistan. Right. At these places, the early humans did the first agriculture and grew the first crops. Wheat, barley and rice. This is the wheat crop, this is the barley crop and this is the rice crop, the first crops to be grown. Not only over here, but even in the central part of our country at the Vindhya Hills, and in the northeastern part, the Garo Hills. Rice was cultivated. Eight 1,000 years. Okay. With the cultivation of plants, the early humans, they also felt the necessity of domesticating and rearing animals for their use and help. Animals like sheep, goat and cattle were reared for their milk, their wool and even to help in farming. Right? It is said that the ancestors of dogs was the first animal to be tamed. So children, in today's class, we covered the periods of human history, which are prehistory, ancient history, medieval history and modern history. Prehistory is the time period for which we have no written records, because the early humans did not know how to speak, how to read and how to write. We know about the prehistory period from the archaeological sources like the cave and the rock paintings, the tools that were used by the early people and are still remaining, the skeletons of the dead animals and the dead people, the seeds that they have left behind in the caves that they lived, etc. We know about the early humans as they being wanderers who kept on moving from one place to another place, about them being gatherers who gathered fruits, roots, nuts and other plants for their food, who we know them as hunters who hunted animals for their food. We know the early humans who settled on the banks of river Narmada in central India. We know them as, we know that before 8,000 years they cultivated crops for the first time like wheat, barley at Suleiman and Kirtar hills, which lie in the northwestern part of India. We know that they started to cultivate rice at Vindhya hills in central India and Garo hills in East India. Garo hills lie in the state of Assam. The early humans, they first started to rear animals like sheep, goat, cattle. And the first animal to be tamed was the ancestor of dog. This way, the early humans, they started agriculture 8,000 years before from today. Right? Now, in next class, we will study how the early humans, they started to live in villages and started to form earlier cities. Which was the first city to be formed, how was it, etc. That's it for today. Have a nice day.